morning, everyone. It is Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday. And we've got a lot to talk about today. We're getting away from the episode-by-episode recaps because all this series we were reviewing are done. So we're going to talk about some more topical stuff. And with us today is our fantastic panel of nerds. Matt Vader, 74. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, bud. We got done watching those terrible shows, so now we're going to talk about them in other aspects and in ways. So yeah. Welcome. Hey guys, welcome chat. How is everybody doing? It's Saturday. Woo! It's Saturday weekend. So
You got some fancy new lights in your background.
They're just repurposed garage lights. Yeah, sure.
And we want to wish a big happy birthday to our other regular panelist, Brian from the Popcast. This is a unofficial birthday stream for the Popcast Bros. So
nice.
Happy birthday, my friend. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I am 22 today.
You're a liar too.
Yeah, I'm a big fat liar.
It was 22 years ago.
That's probably more accurate.
It's pretty accurate, actually.
Yeah.
42.
Pretty close then, yeah.
But I act like I'm 22, so I think it's valid.
Really?
I'm 12,
That's
so that
old.
should be-
Yeah. My wife says I'm a 12-year-old all the time. So
And slumming it today, coming down from Midnight's Edge Mountain, is Tom Connors.
Oh,
So thank you for
I
being
don't know
here, Tom.
about slumming it, but thank you for having me. You guys are always a blast to hang out with and talk to. And thank you for having me.
And just want to give a quick shout out to everyone in the chat. We got Gavin Blackburn, Anthony Mark. Good to see you, Anthony. Joker Voice, Orwell's Son, Red 5 Network, Scarif Scuttlebutt Podcast, Quantum Cat 76, Farnsworth, Mr. Farnsworth, DA Sorcerer, and starting off early today is good old Fluffy Panda. Nope. Restart the stream. No red wig by Vader. Fail.
do I have a red wig? I don't think I have a red wig.
You only
Need
have
to
the
get
blonde
you one.
wig, man.
I guess so. I can show you my feet if you want. I can do that.
No.
Yeah,
We're good.
yeah, he's going the feet route now, the Quentin Tarantino route.
Yeah.
And E. Clay Thompson is here, as well as Lily VS. Good to see you guys, everyone. And Fluffy Panda started us off with like a great super chat. Just a reminder, if you guys like what we do here, want to support the stream and the show in general, throw some super chats. We will literally stop everything and read your super chat. And
If you like puppies, do it too.
Yes, and if you don't want to give us a super chat, at least give us a thumbs up. Really helps us with the algorithm.
Oh yeah, I should probably do
All right.
that.
Yeah. And so Vader's going to be monitoring the chat, so be kind to him, and maybe he'll feature you on our stream. But we got a lot to get to today, so why don't we get to it? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is G4 TV shuts down. Womp womp. Yeah. So we got this article from Deadline. Comcast pulls the plug on G4 TV, ending comeback try for Gamer Focused Network. And basically, the long and short of it is that the network behind G4 TV's reboot said that it was failing to meet its expectations and wasn't making any money. And so they decided to shut it down. And apparently all the G4 employees found out about it through this press release. So it was just a shit show from beginning to end. But I want to hear your guys' take on it. Matt Vader 74, everyone saw this coming from the moment Frost dropped that rant of hers. But what's your take on this?
This is like what I love about social media and modern entertainment is that we can sit back and we can watch things just literally implode a little bit more every single day. And it's just fun. I mean, look, I'm kind of a shit poster. I'm a bit of a troll online, and I kind of just live for this kind of stuff sometimes. It's so much fun for me. But yeah, I mean, they got exactly what they deserved. When you attack fans, when you talk crap about people who watch your product and just talk a crap load of shit, then you're going to get what you deserve, right? I mean, the Frost situation was out of control, and they just never reeled her in and made that good, and they paid the price. Remember when G4 was good back in the day?
Yeah.
When Olivia Munn and
Kevin Pereira
and they all had their coverage from Comic-Con and all that kind of stuff. They used to be a really cool channel. They used to be a really fun channel. And then when they came back, it just they got woke, right? And it never felt the same. So what do you do?
So Brian,
smart business people pull the plug, and that's what they did. So
Brian, there was this one dude who was like with G4 TV who was defending Frosk. And the minute somebody started calling him out, he started going on a block fest where he would just block everyone who was even tangentially related to showcasing the fact that he was full of crap.
I'm one of those people. Whoa.
Yeah, I am too. I think we all are.
I think we all are, and everybody in the chat probably as well.
I think he blocked like 90% of Twitter, actually. But what's interesting here is that people still kind of like refuse to acknowledge the culpability that the on-air talent had with the failure to relaunch this. What's your take on this? Do you think G4 could have actually succeeded?
Yeah, no, it could have. Here's the trick to succeeding on your second run. Ready? You don't jump on your first stream and go, listen, stop watching our show. That's the first.
The sad thing is, I don't think that was the first stream. They had several before that where nobody was watching, but yeah, that was the most watched one.
Yeah, first stream I saw, and they jumped on. They were getting their audience back, and they instantly told their audience just to leave. You know, in as little words as I can possibly muster here. And when you tell your audience to leave with visceral and venom, and then they do exactly what you asked them to do, you shouldn't be surprised. Just saying, you shouldn't be surprised.
When you pull the old, if you don't like our content, then F you, get out of here. We don't like you either. Yeah.
And everyone left.
Okay.
All right. Sorry. My bad. I know you didn't want me here. Okay. See you later.
Look, you can keep a nerd like on the line forever if he thinks he might get a chance of seeing your tits. The moment you tell him he's never going to see your tits, it's all over. Sorry, just saying. Like that's the short version of that. But yeah sorry, go ahead.
So the G4 reboot was kind of headed by Universal, Comcast Universal, which was the money behind them. And it was actually kind of interesting because in this Deadline article, they talk about how, they were putting content on YouTube and social media, but they also had multi-year agreements with Twitch and pay TV distribution deals with Verizon, Fios, Cox, and Xfinity TV, and Philo. And, Comcast are one of the biggest cable networks in the world. And so, like, they definitely had, like, a bunch of outlets where they could stream, G4 content, and they just didn't. What do you think was the real failure here? Because, there's a lot of talk where it's like, yeah, Frost Rant didn't help, but overall, like, the audience has moved on from like watching like scripted gaming programming to like you can go on a YouTube stream and like watch Ninja, or something like that.
Right.
What's your take on this?
No, I'm more in that camp. Like, I mean, not to disagree with Brian at all, but I believe that this is just my opinion, but I believe it was doomed from the start. Like Andre has posited that too. It was, and we had talked to somebody, let's just say close to the situation, who had told us that this was going to happen. And we did a video on this about 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, right after Frost's rant, that basically it was all going to get shut down and she was going to be the one to blame. But she went and mussed that up by saying shit on Twitter. So they just got rid of her early. But no, like basically from what I had heard from the same individual was that this was all started up just to help promote Universal Studios e-game shit. That's really all it was. They were trying to cash in on the nostalgia factor from our age group who actually had, G4 TV back in the day 20 years ago. And then the other side of it was just to sell this esports thing. Cause I guess, I don't know. I've never been to Universal, but I guess probably since back in the days of the Wizard, they've had like, esports contests and stuff like that here and there at Universal or something like that. So I'm sure it has all to do with that, I guess. And that was really all it was to promote these and build up these esports events. And because I think they knew right up front that like, yeah, this is a saturated market now. You literally have a 10-year-old in his mom's apartment who has, 5 million subscribers and makes billions of dollars a year because, you know, he just sits there and plays Minecraft all day. There's no way G4 can compete with that. But to me, I loved G4 for the simple reason that when it first came on, it was like, oh wow, there's actually a channel for this stuff. Because I thought nobody likes to talk about this nerd stuff, especially growing up in a very rural area. I very rarely ran into anybody who knew what a Star Wars was,
Right.
You know, and
It was TV for us, man. It was nerd television.
It was nerd television. Right. It was video games. It was movies. It was the geeky stuff. Not the glamorous, big Hollywood fair always stuff, but the little indies and the superhero movies and the horror films and all the sci-fi stuff that we were into that wasn't mainstream yet. But that's the thing, and that's another reason. At that time when G4 first came out, they were the first to the block. Now they're the last to the block, right? So it's the complete opposite. Well, now that nerd stuff's cool, and yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say G4 was basically an accumulation of shows that were like what all of us are making on YouTube now. That's kind of how I always kind of saw it.
I mean, that's what they are. So when they came back super corporate and woke and with an HR department, it doesn't work, right? Because the point, like we're doing what G4 was doing back then, and they came back, like I said, with an HR department and a CEO, and they said, "Hey, kids, look at us, we're cool now too."
Hello, fellow kids.
I mean, the funny thing is what we heard is the Frost Grant thing.
Yeah,
he did not get permission from that on high.
Yeah,
it was actually more immediate producers.
I wanted to ask you about that, Tom, because on Midnight's Edge, you guys always do a fantastic job of doing like hard news, and like you have like a great series of videos about like the Frost Grant. And from what I understand, she worked on that with her 2 female producers beforehand. Yes. It didn't come from on high. It was like the on the ground producers who basically decided to do that. Can you fill us in on like what the background behind that?
Yeah, and was? Chris Gore, who actually used to work for G4, kind of said that's probably what happened, was like something like this. He's like, usually everything goes, it's quadruple checked. He's like, something like this felt like it was completely unprepared and it just came out of nowhere. And that's what it sounded like, was that there was a couple of producers on the ground, like you just said, that were there on the show that were okay with it. But I guess even some of the other guys on the stream itself and some of the other producers were completely unaware that this was going to happen. And when it did happen, the thing is, it was kind of like one of those, oh my God, we finally got attention things, but then quickly became obvious that this was not going to go the way they wanted. Yeah. Right, because at that point, most people didn't even know G4 was back until Frost made her little rant. But then the moment she made her little rant, it was kind of like what Brie Larson had done to Captain Marvel in killing any chance it had to be successful with the fans before it ever came out, regardless of the box office. So even if they got a little boost in whatever views they did for a week or two, which it didn't really, because if anybody who paid attention, nothing changed. In fact, they weren't doing very well to begin with. That was the whole problem. And that's why I say it was inevitable. Unless they completely changed their roster and went back to their old ways, which was never going to happen because at the corporate level, they wouldn't let that happen probably. So at this point, it was like, it was a dead fish and all Frost did was just step on the head.
Well, what's interesting about all this is that to succeed in the gaming space, you need to, 1, either be really good at games, 2, be really entertaining, or 3, be a hot chick. And I'm gonna step on the hornet's nest a little bit here and open this up to the panel because I want to get your take on it. Frost's whole thing was like, she's not as bangable as hosts from the past, but female gamers aren't there to be easy on the eyes for you. But I think that you have to be aware of who your audience is. And the vast majority of video game audiences are young men who are straight and they want to see hot chicks. And so if you can walk that balance of having like an attractive girl who's good at gaming or at least entertaining or at least knowledgeable about it, you're going to attract more people than you normally would if you didn't have that. And so I wanted to ask you guys, do you think that G4 would have had an easier time if they had actually hired good looking women as opposed to what we got?
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry. If I was a better looking woman, I'd have a million subscribers right now.
Listen,
you know how long it took me to get 100,000? I'm a 42-year-old fat nerd. It takes time. I have to actually be clever. I'm sorry. Yes.
Olivia Munn and Morgan Webb weren't there because of their personalities at first, right? They were there because they were hot and nerds like to look at hot chicks.
No, Olivia Munn ended up having a great personality.
Oh yeah, I love Olivia Munn. I'm not saying that at all, but you know, she was there because she was hot. Okay, and if people say that that's not the reason she was there, then they're wrong and they're being delusional.
Guys, other female hosts were actual playmates.
Yeah,
they weren't nerds; they were playmates. They dressed.
Well,
and they dressed
old
them up as
G4
nerds.
was a lot like the Man Show, basically, like
Right,
all day long.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, and that was
and they understood who their audience was.
Right.
Yeah, really, the Frost Grant. The worst part of it wasn't even the whole sexist bit, because they could have just fired her if that was the problem, right? Like, of course, there's an optics factor and all that kind of shit. From what we heard, it wasn't even so much that part that pissed everybody off so much, was that she told everybody how the fucking sausage was made. That was what pissed everybody off. That they don't write their reviews, they don't play the fucking games. She flat out admitted to not doing what people were claiming they weren't doing in the first place. So in the midst of the rant, which spawned the whole thing in the first place, she admitted to exactly what everybody was complaining about, was that this bitch had no clue what she was fucking talking about, ever. And from what we heard, is the only reason she was there was because she's really good at coordinating these fucking esports events, I guess. Sorry, pardon my language, but
no, you're good.
Yeah, like, just to me, the whole, I just look at it like, you tanked this entire thing, even though it was probably never gonna sail to begin with, but you just, just because it may be dying doesn't mean you necessarily have to snuff it out now. There could be a chance for it to live on. They could have retooled it. I guarantee you, if they'd have got a bunch of good-looking women in there, some people who actually played video games, actually played to their crowd like you guys are talking to, G4 could have been successful again, but I just think it was doomed from the start.
I mean, when I think of G4, guys, I think of Olivia at Comic-Con in her little Wonder Woman outfit.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that comes to my head when I think about
that's why I bought her book. I have her book. Because the cover, she was on the one. Now, it's a good book, but why did I buy the book? Because she's wearing
yeah. Well, what's funny is that, so, Frost comes out with this ultra feminist rant about sexism in gaming. G4 circles the wagons around her. Everyone comes out in support of her. And then not a week later, they have Amouranth shaking her moneymakers in, a swimsuit in a pool of plastic balls. And it's like I thought you guys just said that, you were above doing this type of thing.
I think they were trying to make fun of us. Yeah, but it didn't, again, go the way they planned.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the current Amouranth drama a little bit later in the show. But any final thoughts on G4 TV, guys, before we move on to the next topic? Matt?
The old saying is, if you go woke, you go broke. If you attack your fans, you're not going to succeed.
They're not.
You're going to go away. It's the whole G4 thing makes me really sad, because I was really rooting for these guys when we heard that they were restarting this thing. I used to really like G4. I mean, a network like that should be able to succeed in this day and age
especially with the backing they had.
Yeah. I mean, with this onset of esports and the YouTube culture and everything, there's this, they really screwed up. It's don't take this personally to anybody out there that has a YouTube channel, but when people with YouTube channels are outperforming, G4 TV on their channel and on network television and stuff, that's a sad thing for them. And it was inevitable. The plug had to be pulled. I totally get it. So maybe somebody will buy it and take that brand and do something with it again. I don't know. I doubt it. But I guess rest in peace, G4. Too bad Frost sunk you, man. So
yeah, Brian, any final thoughts?
I gotta say, I'm with Vader here. I was actually looking forward to the return of G4. I actually thought I was actually tuning into the streams and everything. I gotta say, Kevin Pereira is a smart guy. Because he was loosely connected to the whole thing, at least on camera. But he he definitely steered clear of this from the start. Now, either it's because they didn't want to pay him to come back on camera, or he didn't want to do it anymore, or possibly he looked at this and said, "Oh, so a bunch of 50-year-olds are coming here and trying to do what we were doing when we were 30, 20, and 30. Nah, I'm good." So whatever it was, he was smart not to come back, because Kevin Pereira actually creates pretty good content. And he never saw the stardom that Olivia Munn saw, because once again, he's not a hot chick. So he's got to work harder. I'm sorry. That's the fact. When it comes to the internet, when it comes to influencers on the internet.
Listen, man, if you're hot enough, all you got to do is sit in front of a television or in front of a camera and eat cereal.
Bro,
you'll make $1 million.
I've seen Twitch streams of a chick watching TV.
Yeah,
in a hot tub doing nothing. 70,000 followers. Like, listen,
here you go, hot chick.
Yeah, we have to work harder, and that's okay. I'm not complaining. I am complaining, but I get it.
God bless you.
But listen, if you want to bring G4 back, and to be frank, I didn't even. And this is not. I swear to God, I am not trying to be mean right now. I didn't know Frosk was a woman until she talked.
I'd never heard of her until the whole incident.
I didn't know who she was, and I'm watching the stream, and for me, I thought I was just an edgy-looking 22-year-old dude. I mean, I'm being honest. And then when she started talking, that's when I was like, "Oh, okay." And you know what? Of course she's got. Of course, I'm sorry, man. You weren't blessed with a genetic lottery like Olivia Munn was. I get it, but you can't expect to go crazy on your fans and succeed.
Well, what's funny is, like, when Frost actually tries to look presentable, she's not half bad looking. But I just wonder, like, why not put someone like Alana Pierce in there? Like, she's not only gorgeous, but she's like super knowledgeable about, pretty much everything in the video game industry. She's very intelligent. She's a great gamer too. She almost looks like a Targaryen with like her silver hair and stuff like that. So, I think she was on Rooster Teeth for a while, and she's been bouncing around kind of homeless for a bit, but G4 should have snapped her up, because, like, man, talk about a winning combination of beauty and brains on that one.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. When I saw this person for the first time, like,
attractive.
I mean, I've seen men that are prettier, right? It's like, and like, she wasn't presenting herself anyway, so it's not my fault that I was like, I didn't identify her immediately as that gender.
I'm really into the neck tattoos and the nose ring. That really gets me going, man.
Justin Bieber haircut. Like, what do you want from me? That's facts, dude.
I mean, apparently she comes from like the casting side of League of Legends. Like, she was like a League of Legends, like.
Oh, of course she's a League player. Of course. See that? I'm a Dota player, bro. Come get some. I knew it.
There you go.
All right, Tom, any final thoughts on the G4 situation?
Nah, no, it was doomed to fail. Sadly, Frosk just expedited that situation, and it's just another end of an era, I guess. I mean, it was already dead and gone years ago, but yeah.
All right, Matt, we got a couple of super chats before we move on to our next story.
We do. I thought we got them.
Nope. We have one from Fluffy Panda.
Go ahead. All right.
For $5, we don't get enough credit. We'll support pretty much anything, but the woke is obsessed with attacking the fan base of what they're trying to sell to.
True.
It's very true. This whole attacking your fan business strategy doesn't work, in my opinion. And we got a super sticker from Gavin Blackburn as well for 99 cents, 99 pounds. I don't know like how to say that one. But thank you, Gavin Blackburn. We'll pop that one up. Appreciate all the support. You guys are great. Keep them super chats coming. All right, guys, on to our next story, which is, rumor has it, Ezra Miller is being replaced as the Flash no matter what. Not in the upcoming movie. He's still going to be in that. But after that movie comes out, Warner Brothers is definitely recasting the role.
Am I in the Twilight Zone?
And this is coming from Bounding Into Comics. And basically, in typical Bounding Into Comics fashion, their sources are all Twitter users. But I'm not surprised if this happens. In fact, I fully expected this to happen from the
I was
moment
to say, if they
started hearing.
sourced me from 2 months ago, they would already known this.
Yeah. But basically, right now, Ezra Miller is going through a trial process where he could face up to 2 years in jail. And one of the things I did learn about this article, which I thought was kind of interesting, is that
Actually, 26 years in prison is what it's basically possible.
okay.
Wow.
So one of the
It
things I
won't
learned from this
happen.
article that was actually interesting is that Warner Brothers has had a number of meetings about this issue. And apparently, David Zaslav, who's like the new CEO of Warner Discovery, he was actually wanting to go forward with the Flash movie when his board was like, "Hey, we need to shelve this thing indefinitely until this Ezra situation is addressed." And Zaslav said, "Hey, this is a good movie. I've seen it. I don't think we need to shelve it. I think we can put it out there and make money and still enhance our brand." He was actually more worried about the quality of Aquaman 2, where he was like, I'm worried about Aquaman. We need to put our focus there as opposed to like the Flash. And so that's one of the reasons why they haven't really been kind of like harping on the Ezra Miller situation.
Anyway.
That's what they tell us. But to me, that kind of makes sense because it seems like it's in line with Zaslav's upcoming strategy. But the biggest thing here is that Ezra Miller, no matter what he does or how many apologies he gives, he's basically out going forward after the release of this movie. And they're going to be recasting it. And maybe they'll explain it somehow in the universe. I'm not quite sure. But Matt Vader 74, what are your thoughts on this issue?
My thoughts are, how could they not replace him at this point? This dude has had so many strikes against him that are all just self-inflicted that at this point you kind of have to, right? I mean, he's toxic. He's to the point now where any movie or project he touches, there's going to be a significant portion of the people out there, the consumers, that aren't going to go watch it. I'm probably one of them. I don't have any interest in this movie because I have no interest in supporting something that weirdo is in. And that's the problem I think they have. So yeah, they kind of have to recast him now, and they need to be careful with who they cast in these roles, because these people need to not be idiot weirdos that start cults and attack people for no reason when being filmed about it and stuff. Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy, right? They have to.
Yeah. Speaking of attacking, so Brian, one of the surprising things here to me is that all the bad behavior that Ezra has presented has been directed towards women. He's choked them, he's assaulted them, he's taken them from their families and put them in his cult compound. But in a way, he's been protected because he's non-binary, right? Every news article refers to Ezra Miller as they, them, stuff like that.
Right.
So it's one of those weird situations where like the media is kind of like, well, we backed ourselves into a corner because we protect, these people who don't identify as binary. But at the same time, this is a guy who's basically abusing women left and right.
Right.
So what's your take on this?
Yeah. So it's actually funny. There was this Variety article that came out. It was like inside Ezra's compound, right? And we were making fun of him on our stream. Him, they, whatever. And we were like, listen, if you ever get invited to someone's compound, just note that you are probably going into a cult. Period. The end. No one calls their house, their place of a compound, unless they're nuts. So, we're reading this article, and there's this great. So whoever wrote this article is a genius, because they were describing Ezra's initial arrest and how they were pulling everything out of his pockets. Right? They're like, they pulled out a foam dart, some identification, a receipt, a flash ring, and $200 million of Warner Brothers money. It was genius, because he's not only protected because of the whole protected class, they, them, non-binary, but he's also protected because he's a celebrity. and he's got a lot of money behind him, making sure that it's not that whatever he does is, every time when he falls, it's a nice soft landing. So when it comes to the they them thing, it's very interesting because I'm not trying to offend anybody. If someone wants me to use a pronoun or whatever, it's fine. But according to Ezra's friends and close family, he doesn't even take the pronoun seriously. He doesn't take the they them thing seriously. He only takes it seriously on social media and in public on camera, because it's not about his non-binary status. I'm going to argue that I'm not even sure he is non-binary. I think he likes the control that he gets over people when he is able to tell them, hey, use my proper pronouns, you bigot. And he loves that. He loves that control that the non-binary status gives him. And he probably gets off on how confusing it is. Watching these like ultra liberal newscasters navigate through a story about Ezra Miller and using they them pronouns it's fascinating, because they're constantly catching themselves. Seasoned, decades old seasoned reporters are having a difficult time with the they them pronouns, because it doesn't really make sense, like in the English language, and so they have a hard time with it. Well, his family and friends, according to Variety, that they've talked to, he doesn't really care about it. He doesn't take it seriously.
Well, and there's actually something to support that, Brian. I think you're right, because he does act out in that way. Like, he will try to have like the superiority over people when he gets, and it's a swing. Like, he'll go from being normal to just suddenly blowing up at somebody. We've heard from several different people now. And usually it's about things like that. And it's this, and I think you're right, Brian. I think a lot of people, and I'm not saying all people, I'm just saying some who do this whole, pronoun thing.
Right.
I think a lot of it is because they feel inferior because they aren't that intelligent, but this is something that they can usually trip people up with. So then they get this power trip of, I'm smarter than this person now because I can, no matter what you say, they can navigate you into some kind of corner as far as they're concerned, right? Because there's a no-win scenario with this.
Right.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there.
It's kind of funny that he's like non-binary, yet he's obviously a heterosexual male, going around manipulating these women. Tom, one of the more like logistical aspects of this is I think, a lot of this stuff came out after they'd finished principal photography on The Flash, and like they had to bring him back for reshoots for certain things. But I think at this point, it's just impossible to get him bonded to do a movie. Like, you can't insure a movie with like a leading man who could potentially go to jail for 30 years. So I wanted to get your take on this. What do you think are the driving factors behind this decision? And do you think that this is actually going to come to fruition?
I mean, there's so many levels to this right now. It's a clusterfuck beyond clusterfucks. I mean, of course, it was the thing they have in their benefit is it was finished shooting. It did finish shooting back in 1989. Like, it's been done for years. But they've been this is like the rise of Skywalker for DC. They've literally been reshooting this thing now longer than they were shooting it originally, right? And as far as how Zaslav feels about the film and what he said publicly, I've heard that's a lot of song and dance more than anything. The movie did test well, but from what I heard, it tested well because of Michael Keaton. That's it. Like, people didn't like Supergirl. That was another thing we heard. So it's like, and that's another reason why I was like, wait a minute, this supposedly had some great test screening. Not from what I heard. From what I heard, everybody hated Supergirl and found her annoying as piss. And so I'm like, that doesn't bode well for the film. And they said, yeah, Michael Keaton's great, but he's only in the movie for like 10 minutes or whatever it is. So like, you're kind of stuck with the situation. Yeah, they were right. You have the Ezra Miller playing basically 2.3 roles in this movie, which is a problem. And I've been hearing 2 months ago already, they had already made that decision that they were going to recast him going forward no matter what. That was a done deal before he even got the felony. But 2 months ago when he had this felony slapped on him, that's when I heard shit changed big time. And now we're starting to hear this stuff, because then they were combating the rumors that they were looking at other people. Then they were looking at Dylan O'Brien and this other guy. And now it's, was it Douglas something or other they're looking at now. But I had heard they already had decided way back then they were looking at somebody new going forward. But now I'm curious if they're going to revisit, because they had talked then about the idea of reshooting it. And even though, you know, a lot of people were right, it would cost a lot of money and stuff like that. I had talked to somebody, and I think I brought this up the last time I was on the show, a little bit closer to like special effects and stuff like that. And they flat out told me that, like, yeah, it's going to cost a little bit and it would take some work, but it's not as impossible as everybody thinks. Because you got to remember that all these actors are shot on green screens. 9 times out of 10, they're not even shot in the same shot, you know, so they can manipulate it and do all that later. Another good percentage of it is just CGI, and in which case you're not going to have to really manipulate much there, you know. So he kind of compared it to how they fixed Sonic in a way.
Well,
he's like,
do you
it
remember
really
how
wouldn't be that much different?
You remember how they completely removed Chris D'Elia from Army of the Dead?
That's another thing they've done.
That
That
was so
They-
booty
yeah.
too. That was so, honestly, Chris D'Elia actually would have made that stinker a little more watchable, in my opinion.
I don't know about that.
I mean,
That was a terrible
his
movie.
humor would have at least been a little ray of sunshine.
So they
That was-
did push back Aquaman quite a bit, but they haven't said crap about Flash. So I wouldn't be surprised.
I know a lot
in
about the Flash, actually. If you guys want to know something, I mean, I actually talked to insiders and stuff.
Sure, would love to hear about it. But other
Yeah,
than that, I
spill-
just
spill the
know
tea.
that I
Let
was
us know,
just going to
Brian.
say that in about 2 months, I bet we'll hear it gets pushed back again so they can reshoot it with a different actor.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, they're not going to do that. What they're doing is, so first off, Superman, Henry Cavill's Superman, he actually picked up, it was recent, when he did the stinger for Black Adam, he also did a stinger for the Flash. And the original script for the Flash called to basically replace Ben Affleck's Batman and Henry Cavill's Superman with what's the guy, the original Batman? What's his name? Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton's Batman, and a Batgirl played by this Latina actress, which she looks great, by the way, in the costume.
Yeah,
And-
Supergirl was supposed to replace Henry Cavill, right?
Right. That is
Yeah,
no
that was the
longer
plan we
happening.
heard too, yeah.
Right. So that's no longer happening. And there's an end credit scene to solidify Henry Cavill's Superman in that universe. Additionally, there was 3 more pickup shots shot, and 2 of them were with Ezra Miller, and 1 of them was not. So
Yeah.
the fact that during that time they filmed 2 more pickup shots with Ezra and 1 pickup shot without Ezra, and the script was changed to no longer replace Ben Affleck's Batman with Keaton, and no longer replace Superman with Supergirl, but instead have them exist in the same universe. The pickup shots would indicate that more than likely we're gonna get a slightly different ending, an ending that no longer erases the Snyder part of the equation.
Yeah.
Instead, it's probably going to embrace it the way Black Adam sort of did. And I bet you, and if I had to bet on a stack of Bibles, you know, I would say that third last pickup shot was some kind of in-universe explanation as to why Ezra will not be continuing the role in future films after The Flash.
Up until that last thing, that's all stuff I've heard, yeah.
Yeah. So you heard about the three additional pickup
All that
shots, right?
stuff, yeah, that's all stuff we heard. Like, yeah, that was done like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And
So around the
Here's
same
the thing,
time,
though, a lot of that was before he got charged with the fucking felony, though. That's the problem.
Well, yeah. But why would they be doing additional pickup shots? So the same time they did the Black Adam stuff, they did extra pickup shots with Ezra and an additional pickup shot with an unknown actor, no one we knew before, right? And not Ezra. The last pickup shot was completely done without Ezra.
It might
More
have been
than
a
likely-
screen test.
Yeah, more than likely it could have been a stream test. It could have been a stunt double showing like a different costume. It could have been anything that just sort of allowed them or bought them time to then change the actor for following films.
Because I had heard Affleck was shooting the stuff for Aquaman 2 and reshooting stuff for Flash at the same time. a few months
Yes,
ago,
yeah,
too.
and he was actually with
So-
Cavill in LA with Wonder Woman because Wonder Woman's going to make an appearance in the Flash. So the Flash section going to have the whole crew now.
He certainly wasn't on the set of C for the last 45 minutes of its
The only
finale, so.
the only thing I have to say to that is that, like I said, this is stuff that I'd heard months ago, and now a lot of that's probably up in the air because this felony charge over Ezra's head is a big deal. Like they can kind of dance around a lot of the other shit because a lot of it's hearsay, never been any charges. He paid his way out of the charges. Charges were dropped. This is a felony charge. Sure, he's not going to probably sit in the actual jail or prison time, but it's still a felony charge, and he pled not guilty. So that means he's going to court. I mean, he'll probably do a plea deal, but from what I had heard, all that stuff that you're talking about, when he had finally come out of hiding, he went to Warner Brothers, or his people went to Warner Brothers, and they offered help, but he turned it down because, as Script Doctor backed this up, normally in Hollywood, when they do that shit, they don't want to take help from the studio because then that means they're under the studio's fucking thumb. But if they get their own help, then at least it's like, okay, they're getting help, but they're not under the control of the studio. Well, I heard he checked in, checked right back out. So that didn't help either. But then at that time is when he went and shot those couple scenes, talked to Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi. And at that time, they were still planning on trying to get this movie out with him in it and then move forward without him. He was already aware. Everybody was aware that after this, he's not going to be in any of the DC movies going forward unless something drastically changed. And that would take a miracle at this point.
I think they should replace him with Johnny Depp.
Maybe, or Amber Heard. Less of two evils. No, at this point, like, because that's the other thing is, yeah, you're right. They're getting Amber out of Aquaman. I heard that a while ago, too. But then also, I think I said this last time, you're right, too, about that early. What you said earlier, Matt, was Aquaman's problem wasn't so much Amber Heard. It was just the fact that the movie sucked, and it was testing poorly, and they needed to reshoot it and fix it. And as far as the Snyderverse stuff, all the people I've talked to have been very reluctant to use the term Snyderverse because I've been reminded by several people that they never left the Snyderverse. It's still technically the Snyderverse. Zaslav said they are going for a reset, which means completely starting fresh, but with the same actors. And you're going to notice a huge change in shift in tone. And I don't expect Zack Snyder to come back anytime soon because I've also been told by multiple people that as far as the studio is concerned, the theatrical release is the canon. The Zack Snyder trilogy, as they call it, is just that. It's a little offshoot thing. And that's why it was released on HBO Max and not theatrically.
It's fantastic.
That's the way they see it. Yeah, it's basic. It's not to put a finer term on it. It basically is, unfortunately. Yeah. We're never getting a Justice League 2. It did not do as well as people like to make you think it did. It didn't sell hardly any fucking anywhere near the amount of discs it had to sell to constitute the money they spent on it, and it didn't boost at HBO Max the way they were hoping. But then you had the Batman, which confused matters. That was the problem, because if the Batman would have flopped, then we would have gotten a return to the Snyderverse. If the Batman had been $1 billion, then we would have got a complete reset across the board. Now what problem you have here is they've got mixed data telling people that they like these actors, but they don't like these movies. So that's kind of way Zaslav is going forward with most of this. He was under the impression, though, at first that people liked Ezra, but he has been nothing but a headache. Amber's been nothing but a headache. From what I've heard, every time their names come up, he gets very upset because he just wants them to go away. These are movies and projects that he has nothing to do with, had nothing to do with, and now he's had to basically adopt. And once we get past these is when we're going to start seeing what he wants to do. Yeah. And that's where I hear this new Superman movie's coming in.
And Ray Fisher is also still out there poking at them.
Oh, he's never coming back. He screwed his whole career up, man. I mean, come on. I mean,
well, he's got job security with every Zack Snyder movie in the future. Like
that's about it. Zack Snyder doesn't even have that big of security. That's the thing. I get it. I get the love and passion that the Snyder fans have for him, but Warner Brothers and him don't really get along as well as you'd think. And a lot of the stuff that happened during that was his people pushing it. So that's the other thing you got to remember too. And the disc sales just ain't there. The movie brought in $9 million in disc sales.
Are you saying
nowhere near what they're hoping for?
Tom, are you saying the Snyder cult isn't as culty as they want to be?
I hate being the guy to keep telling people this. It's not as big as it is loud.
That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting off.
Yeah.
Well,
and
also,
go back.
it was
And
revealed that Zack Snyder himself, the publicity company that he hired,
That's what I was just talking about.
A lot of those things were bots, so it was a very AstroTurf movement to promote.
Well,
And that's
not
why
a lot.
Warner's
A
doesn't
lot-
like
a
him.
lot is a relative term. 8% is not a lot, bro.
I mean,
Well,
like,
the point is the fact
it was,
that he
it
had
was
a.
enough, it was enough to create an artificial demand.
Well, hold up. That article is sus, you guys. Come on. That is coming from Walter Hamada and his boys trying to keep their job after WMD. Sure. I'm saying WMD because
there was
Warner
no saving Hamada's job, dude.
No, it wasn't just Hamada. Like, they were trying to keep their future jobs too. They were trying to like put their information out there to show that they weren't the idiots. And let's be real, the previous regime of Warner Brothers are retarded.
That's not an argument, but yeah.
Yeah, right. Right. So, but they're trying to save their future jobs and their careers and have a job after the fact by going to their boys in the media and Variety and Deadline and saying, "Hey, look at what we did. We had this great plan for the DCU and they ruined it. Snyder's the bad guy."
Here's the thing, though, Brian, is that having had experience with Hollywood publicity firms, I have no doubt that they have like a bot farm that they utilize to help promote stuff on social media. Yeah. And so it is not out of the realm of possibility ahead that Snyder coordinated with this company in order to get the ball rolling on trying to get his, his revenge on Warner Brothers and get his director's cut released.
I was just going to say, both are actually true, to be honest with you, Brian.
I'm not saying that either, yeah.
And not only that, you have a problem here now, because that's the thing, is all those people are out the door. Zaz is now stuck with tainted information, right? That's the problem he has.
Real quick, I hate
get
to
a
interrupt.
real good grasp on it because he had this publicity department. But
I hate to interrupt Tom, but we're bringing in his better half now with Andre from Midnight's Edge. Andre, we're not worthy. Thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Hello, my pleasure. Greetings, everyone.
It's Midnight's Edge on the Salty Nerd, everybody.
I did send him the link. I wasn't sure if he was going to make it or not. But
more slumming from like the gods on high. How you doing, Andre?
Yeah. I'm doing good. I was felt sorry to come in and interrupt Tom in mid-thought. Tom has knocked it out of the park in all things DC, with and mainstream media being roughly 2 months behind Tom's reporting. So,
I
suggest we go back to what he was saying before that. Though,
real quick, Andre, I'd also like to point out that Brian has a DC Comics centered YouTube channel.
Hey,
it's doing very well, and if you guys are into the DCEU and coverage on that, be sure. Brian, where can they find that channel?
It's just called DC Unleashed. I don't really have a link. So if you look up DC Unleashed, or you know what, if you go to our main channel, the big channel, and you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see our network, and you'll see DC Unleashed.
Awesome. All right, Tom, let's wrap up this talk about Snyderverse.
I was just saying, like, Brian is right. You're right, Matt. Both can be true at the same time, but that's the problem Zaslav is facing now, is he has tainted information, right? He's got a situation where he can't, nobody can specifically say whether or not the Snyder cut was natural or not because of Snyder getting a publicity department involved. No matter what percentage, of bots there were, or whatever percentage you want to say it was this, that, or the other, the problem they have now is that, because you're right, Brian, when the Snyder cut was a thing, when it was being boasted and talked about, Warner's was basically, they'll take your phone calls, but they ain't telling nobody shit. They got tons of emails and everything, but they weren't saying shit. Basically, the word on high was the Snyder cut doesn't exist. If anybody asks about it, we're not doing anything about it. Don't bring any messages to us. Don't send anything on to any producers. La-di-da-di-da. But then when it actually became a thing, it was only becoming a thing, and this is where Andre first learned of it, and it was just basically being talked about for HBO Max, because they needed something to compete with Mandalorian. And that's the only reason it ever became a thing, because at that point, a lot of the people that were involved with it in the first place were gone, or like Joss Whedon had a bad reputation at that point. So nobody's fifis were going to get hurt that it mattered, other than Hamada and Sarnoff. And you're right, Brian. They let their fifis out in the public be known that they were hurt. But, Sarnoff, unfortunately, was right when she turned around and said, the Snyder cut is a dead end. even then and now they don't plan on revisiting that necessarily in the future anytime soon, outside of maybe some rumblings about a Snyder working on a Batman deal. But from what we've heard, he's happy over
Right.
at Netflix, and they're happy not to work with him. So,
Which is totally fine. The Snyder Cut can exist on its own. Like, it's completely fine. I like the movie or miniseries, whatever you want to call it, because basically it was like binge watching an entire series.
I did too.
It doesn't have. We don't have to. The Snyder universe doesn't have to continue on with that movie. All I'm asking when it comes to DC is please keep the actors and the roles we've already established here. Let's not restart the entire universe again.
Well, that's hopefully the plan.
Right.
And that's what I've been hearing too, is that they're trying to work on a lighter Superman. They even been courting James Gunn, but I don't imagine he's that interested.
So
James
guys,
Gunn
might take over,
speaking of dead ends and bad franchises, let's talk about Star Wars for a little bit. But before we do, I just want to remind everyone watching. Yes, just want to remind everyone watching. If you're watching in the chat, give us a thumbs up. Really appreciate that. And if you want to throw some super chats, we would really appreciate it. But before we get going here, let's just show this article again from Bounding Into Comics, where basically they're declaring Star Wars a dead brand after Andor's premiere ratings are revealed by Nielsen. And this is sourced from a Twitter user who I follow, which is basically Valiant Renegade. And they're talking about like total like viewership minutes watched. And apparently for Andor, it's come into around 500, 600 million minutes or something like that, which is atrocious for a Star Wars series. And the argument here is that it's front loaded on the first episode. And so like it premiered with 3 episodes. And so like the fact that all 3 episodes didn't hit at least like 1 billion watch minutes is like a huge blow towards Star Wars. And they're basically saying that the Star Wars brand has been damaged and that things here are looking really bad for Star Wars going into the future. I have some things to say about this, but I'm going to go to the panel first and foremost. I want to hear Andre, the biggest Star Wars fan of us all, his comments about this. Andre, do you think that Star Wars is a dead brand?
No, I don't think it's dead. That's something. It wasn't actually Bounding Into Comics that said that. They were quoting Valiant Renegade. He was the one who said that, and his exact words was that it was dead in theaters. And this is true, but it's by choice. The moment that they want to bring Star Wars back in theaters, they'll bring Star Wars back in theaters, and then it'll be back in theaters. Now, will it be back as the biggest thing ever? Is it gonna do Force Awakens numbers? That I don't think is ever happening again. What I think has happened is that Star Wars is very much so alive and well, but its reign as the supreme entertainment brand in the world is over, and it will never come back. I think that reign ended long time ago, long before Disney took it over, to be honest. Ever since Marvel superseded it, it hasn't been number one. I don't think it ever could be number one again, because the world has changed. There's so much more competition now. There's been a generational change. And the new status quo for Star Wars, I think, even if they course correct, is that it will be just another franchise among many. It'll be special for what it used to be in the past, but it can still thrive in the future. It only has to be budgeted accordingly. Like, Star Wars is no longer the Star Wars of old. Star Wars is the new Star Trek from a new financial perspective. That's kind of where it can be. Just another franchise among many. So the only thing that's dead is its reign as this supreme entertainment brand. That's dead, and it's never coming back. Everything else, there's a fan base to keep alive, as long as they budget it for a mid-level entertainment brand, which is what it has become. It's almost an ingest, like Star Wars used to be $1 billion brand, now it's $1 million brand. I think that's true.
That's sad.
So Matt Vader, in this article, they talk about how Rings of Power premiered to like over 1 billion views and then steadily declined over time. House of the Dragon came in at around 800 million views and then increased over time. And Andor hasn't even gotten close to those numbers. And in fact, as numbers for episodes 4, 5, and 6 come out, they're expecting it to get even worse. What's your take on this? Is Star Wars dead?
It's kind of a sad thing, right? I mean, it's like Andre said, until they put these things back in movie theaters, I do kind of feel like Star Wars is dead, because the product that they're putting out there just isn't that good. I mean, Andor is slow and boring and trotting, and you know, and with this weird 4 chapters, each one divided into 3 kind of format that they're putting out there, it makes it really hard and difficult to watch. So yeah, I get it. I get these numbers. Star Wars fans were a little bit excited about this new Andor show that was coming out. And as soon as they got into it and they realized how slow it was, they lost interest. So I totally expect the numbers to steadily decline as this series goes forward. I actually thought that this last episode was better. It actually started to feel a little bit like a Star Wars show. But overall, the franchise, they have not hit a real big home run out of here since maybe the first season of The Mandalorian, which I thought was kind of fun, but the stuff that's been out since has not been that great. You know, it's just more live action cartoons. It's more Filoniverse stuff, which I like, but it's weird seeing it in live action compared to animation. And I expect something different with my live action shows, and I don't feel like Star Wars has just found that sweet spot yet, and I don't know if they ever will. So Brian,
we had news about Taika Waititi doing a Star Wars movie that he's currently writing. We also had just this week Rian Johnson come out and say that his trilogy is still a go. It's just a question of scheduling. So there are plans to bring Star Wars back into theaters, but in the meantime, we're relying on the TV shows. Do you think Star Wars is a dead brand, and do you agree with their strategy of doing like the TV shows while the movies take a hiatus?
Well, I mean, I guess the movies should take a hiatus so people will get the taste out of their mouths. For those last 2 movies, just pretty garbage. But I gotta say, I don't think the strategy is TV either. I think you need to switch it up with some new blood. Even though I'm not personally a huge fan of Andor, I gotta say it's definitely a different take, and there is definitely enjoyable parts of it and that more serious sort of spy thriller tone. So that sort of works. Taika Waititi would be probably a breath of fresh air to Star Wars. But I think instead of focusing on, and I'm not an executive, but I think instead of focusing on, a billion TV shows that further muddy the brand and confuse the viewer, maybe they should just focus on making another really good trilogy and not rushing it out like they did the last one. Because a big reason why the last trilogy didn't work was because people weren't communicating. You had people working on 8 while 7 was still being written, being changed in midstream. Not to mention Rian Johnson's a hack. But additionally, he was writing 8 before 7 was done. How do you write a sequel to something that doesn't have an ending yet on the 7th movie? It's just really bad, piss poor management. I believe that Kathleen Kennedy does have the ability to locate talent, but I also think that her sort of hands-off approach is not like Star Wars needs like a Kevin Feige. And when I say Kevin Feige, I'm referring to Kevin Feige like 5-6 years ago, not the current robotic, no pun intended, Kevin Feige we have now. But they need that. They need someone that's passionate about the franchise, that loves the franchise, that loves the stories, that loves the universe, and that understands it, that can then start weaving a proper franchise together. Because right now it's an absolute mess.
All right. Tom, I want to tell you this theory I have about Andor, which is that, typically Disney releases a Star Wars project in December because everyone's home, everyone's watching it. And I think with Andor, they knew that this was going to be a different type of Star Wars. It was much slower paced. And so they're getting it out now so that people will be able to binge it come Christmas time. And so they're hoping to basically stretch out the utility of this prestige TV show. And I do feel like Andor is kind of like a much better show than people are giving it credit for, and it needs to be binged as opposed to watched week to week. But I wanted to hear your take on this. Do you think Star Wars is a dead brand, or do you think that they're just treading water right now until they can get the movies going again?
Well, that's a varied question in the sense that as far as Andor, I haven't picked up on it since the 3rd episode, but I've heard mixed on that as far as how has it gone since. I've heard, it's just continually boring to finally shit's starting to happen again, which seems to be the case. Like Andre pointed out, it seems to be every 3rd episode something happens finally. But as far as the brand itself and as far as Andor being released in the time period it was, because this series was done and shot, I believe, before even Mandalorian season 2, if I'm not mistaken. It's been done and in the can for a while. And I don't know if they had been tweaking it ever since, or if it's just they've been sitting on it, or what the deal was. I think they were just waiting for a lull in their schedule to drop this, because I don't think Mando season 3 is due till like next year, right? Which I think would be the longest patch between projects, which is probably the main reason why they dropped it right now. But you could be right. Other than that, I think it's also, I'm sure they think they're going to get some awards out of this one in comparison to some of the other stuff. So that's probably another reason why they dropped it a bit earlier than December, because December is when they'll probably start sending out all the screeners. So the show will be done by then instead of still showing throughout the season, and probably miss that window by a little bit, perhaps, because I'm sure it cuts off by the 31st, if not before then. So there's that aspect of it. You're probably not wrong there. That's about the only thing that this show has going for it right now, as far as any kind of buzz, as if it does possibly get some award buzz, like Emmy award buzz or something like that, maybe, then people will check it out again later on. So you're probably right about that. As far as the rest goes, is it salvageable? Maybe, but not nearly as salvageable as stuff like Star Trek or Marvel. Is it a dead brand? Oh no. It still sells tons and tons of stuff, and people, I mean, if you put out the original trilogy tomorrow, there's still a ton of people who would buy it. But as far as, like, I think Andre's right, it's shifted its place in the pantheon of IPs as far as fandom goes, and I don't think it'll ever regain its spot, even if it could regain some kind of glory. Other than that, though, at this point, without a complete regime change, I think it's done and over with. And since it's still since it's not a Marvel or a DC kind of property where it can be rebooted as easily, I think it's just going to meander for a while. From what we've heard, the movies have all been shut down. Michelle Redjwan left her position. She was one of the people that was jockeying for Kathleen Kennedy's position, from what we had recalled.
You mean J.J. Abrams' apprentice?
Yes, J.J. Abrams' apprentice. Well,
I hadn't heard that she'd left.
There seems to be a purge of J.J. Abrams in Hollywood going on right now. That's a little bit different conversation to be had, but I think she might be part of that. Even though she's sticking around in the building, in quotations, she's getting what I've been calling the Toby Emmerich exit package. You're not here anymore. You can still pitch us ideas, but we're probably not going to do anything. That's kind of where she's sitting right now. Because I think you're right. Like, nothing is going on there right now. They shut down Rogue Squadron. Mandalorian season 3 is done. Ahsoka's finishing up right now. The only thing that's in active development that I know of is The Acolyte and Taika Waititi and Kevin Feige's Star Wars projects. And from what we've heard from Waititi, that's a good few years off yet. And we've heard no updates on Kevin Feige's projects. So your guess is as good as mine. And as far as Rian Johnson, he can wish in one hand and shit in the other. Let's see which one fills up first, because I'm sorry, he signed his deal with Lucasfilm way before Netflix. And I don't see in any universe where Netflix would take precedent over Lucasfilm and Disney. when it comes to contracts. So if they wanted a Rian Johnson trilogy, they would have it.
I think
that's all I'm going to say on that.
I think he was just feeling lonely yesterday and needed to like put something out there.
As long as he keeps talking about it, he'll stay in the news. That's the thing, guys. You got to remember, he says something about Knives Out 3.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to give a shit. He says something about Star Wars. 10 fucking papers are going to write a headline about it.
Yep.
This is true. So before we move on, we got a few super chats to get to. Fluffy Panda for $5. How did they even begin to win Star Wars fans back? They squandered Hamill, Ford, and Carrie Fisher to ever appear on screen together. Andor is not the answer.
Wow.
I don't know if Andor is actually geared towards Star Wars fans. It feels like it's geared more towards like the HBO style prestige. And
that's the thing. Andor
audience
might be getting a lot more attention had the other shows been good, right?
Yeah.
Like if we had gotten 3 or 4 Star Wars shows that were actually Star Wars shows and they were good, now we'd be saying, okay, this is something fresh. This is something different. It's still Star Wars, but it's something unique. And they're trying, to do this different kind of thing in the Star Wars universe right now. I mean, if they wanted to gain back the fans, they could do it instantly. It'd be not that hard. First thing you do is you release the original trilogy unaltered. Then you just go in and you get rid of Kathleen Kennedy and all this other crap, but it would still take 2 years for them to turn shit around on screen.
Yeah.
I mean, in the meantime, you could do a few things that would get fans back, but that's kind of what Star Trek is doing right now. But that, again, is a little bit different conversation.
I also think kind of carving up Andor, because I truly believe that it was meant to be like a 4-episode miniseries that were like 3-episode chunks that we're getting now. And Lucasfilm just kind of came in there and cut it up in order to get it to 12 episodes so they could spread it out over a longer period of time, because, it feels disjointed. It really does. So,
which is strange because a lot of these shows now, they're being written and shot like movies, right? So unfortunately, like you might know this, Matt, from just working at Paramount and stuff like that. Like when you work on television compared to movies, it's a little bit easier to shift gears in a show than it is to shift gears when you've already got the show complete, right? Like when you're midstream, because when a show gets picked up normally for a network and you do 20 episodes for a season or 24, you do like 4 to 6 episodes. Then you go back to the writer's room. And then if you kind of get some feedback from those first few episodes, and you can kind of go back in and tweak things if you need to going forward. Unfortunately, with all these shows, the Marvel shows, the Disney shows, all these, they're pre-written, pre-shot, pre-done. They can't change shit midstream. Like She-Hulk's a great example of that. Like they could have changed shit in the middle of that and probably fixed it, but no, they can't because it's already done. It's in the can.
Yeah. I personally think I'll always be a fan of the Star Wars that I grew up with and loved as a kid, the original Lucas era stuff. I don't know though if Disney really can completely bring me back as a full-fledged Star Wars fan. They've had so many chances to put something in my wheelhouse that I can latch onto, and they haven't succeeded yet.
Matt, you just said that the last episode of Andor is the most Star Wars it's felt so far. Imagine had they been doing this show like a regular show, 3rd, 4th episode, they'd have been getting some of that feedback and going, okay, the show's a little too slow. We need some more Star Wars. Let's change that, right?
It took 6 episodes for us to get, more than one stormtrooper on the scene at a time. It's crazy. I'm not saying that this Andor show isn't Star Wars. I mean, I guess it is. I mean, there is a lot of stuff in this show that this last episode in particular felt kind of cool and very cinematic and everything. But overall, no, man, it doesn't feel like a Star Wars show. I need Force users. I want some lightsabers. I need more aliens. It's a spy thriller. You know what I mean? And that's what this show is. But it's not Star Wars.
Real quick, guys, we got another super chat from Setlick Gaming for $5. Live long and prosper, gentlemen. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, so Star Wars is pretty much treading water right now. So let's talk about, we mentioned Taika Waititi before. Let's talk about him a little bit more now with his Time Bandits show for Apple TV, which is kind of like interesting. It's basically they're taking Terry Gilliam's famous movie and turning it into a TV show. And Taika Waititi's coming under fire, led by the granddaughter of one of the original actors in the movie, about not casting little people in the roles of the Time Bandits. Basically, it's come out that they're just casting regular-sized actors in the roles. and there are a lot of disabled or fun-sized people, I guess, as Matt Vader would put it, who are upset that they're not being allowed representation in a adaptation that was basically spearheaded by people of small stature. And I'm wondering what the end game here is, because I'm not sure if they can bully people into casting them or what. But I want to get everyone's take on this. Matt Vader 74. We're big fans of Taika Waititi. What do you think of this situation?
I think it's weird. I think it's Peter Dinklage's fault, right? I mean, I don't know. It seems very, very strange that you would have a show based on Time Bandits, which stars a group of fun-sized little people, and not recast fun-sized little people in the roles for the movie, right, or the television show, right? It's strange. It's like the Snow White without fun-sized little people.
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me.
I'm just going to jump in here because Andre has to get going in about 5 minutes. Andre, let's hear your thoughts on this, and thank you so much for coming on the stream. We would really enjoy having you on here.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm sorry I can't stay any longer. But yeah, no, Taika Waititi, he certainly has time for this, since he won't be doing Thor Part 4, nor will he be doing Star Wars. So there is definitely an opening in his schedule to do Time Bandits. As for the protests that he won't be using, I agree. I think Peter Dinklage has a lot to do with that, because everyone in Hollywood is like now so hyper afraid, so hypersensitive, that they probably figured out that we can't use actual little people in the movie because we'll be accused of exploiting them and for making fun of them and stuff like that. So just to play it safe, we're going to use normal size actors, and then we're going to CGI them into little people the safe way, which means no representation for actual little people anymore. So yeah, just think back to the good times of the 80s, because those are gone now.
Normal is problematic. It's cis-sized people, Andre.
Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, just to think about it, like they did lose an opportunity in Lord of the Rings there. They could have yeah. But anyway, so what's going to come out, I don't know. But it's going to be on Apple, and just because of that, I'm a little bit worried about the series itself. I agree that Taika Waititi on paper could do really, really well with something like the Time Bandits. But will he get the necessary feedback and oversight from Apple, judging from some of their other productions like The Foundation? I don't think so. And now, whether they wanted to or not, it has the taint of not adequately representing little people, in addition to that of being a remake in the first place. So this is not the kind of press that they would want.
Yeah. Well, Andre, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence this morning.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andre.
I was thinking of you here a couple of weeks ago, actually, because I was hanging out with Silje Torp Faravåg in Oslo. Where is the shield maiden in Norseman?
Yeah.
Nice.
See if I can find a nice picture to send you.
Was she? She played Freya, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, we love her.
Next time
you hang out with her, ask her if she'll do an interview with us.
Yeah, I was thinking of it, but in the situation it would have been awkward. But if I get another opportunity, I definitely will.
Well, let her know that we're like this with Kari Conradi. So
yeah, that's awesome. I'll let him know too if I do see him in the streets of Oslo.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, thanks, Andre. Enjoy your frozen pizza.
Cheers.
Goodbye.
It almost seems weird that Andre's eating frozen pizza, but
yeah, it's a big thing in Norway.
All
it just seems like you guys would be slumming the shit out of it there. That'd be like, I would assume you guys would just turn your nose up at it, but all right, cool.
Yeah. Well, there's only some frozen pizzas. Like it has to be grandiosa. Grandiosa or bust.
See, I suppose that's like the DiGiorno here or something like that, I suppose.
Yeah, probably. All right. Thanks for having me. Sorry I couldn't stay longer.
Thank you, Andre.
Thank you, everyone.
No problem. Thanks for hopping on.
Bye.
All right. So Vader, what were your thoughts on this as well? Because basically, Taika Waititi, he's done a great job with transitioning what we do in the shadows to TV.
Mhm.
It's a great show. He had Our Flag Means Death on HBO. Even though I haven't watched that, I've heard good things about it. And with this, it seems like they basically, like, I don't know how many fun-sized actors there are, or actors who are good enough where they can like do like a TV schedule type thing and deliver performances.
I'm sure there's plenty. I'm sure there's plenty of them out there. I mean, honestly, if you're, I'm gonna get wrecked for this, but if you're a little person, right? I mean, you work in the entertainment industry, or you have a television show on A&E, right? Isn't that how it works?
Well, that's a reality show. It's unscripted.
So yeah, I guess so. So yeah, Taika. I mean, we like Taika's stuff for the most part on the podcast, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't like his last Thor movie. After much re-examining things, that thing's a train wreck, but he was just being more Taika. And I think Taika is a very much an acquired taste. If you don't like his vampire stuff, is what we do in the shadow stuff, you're probably
you like Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, I did. I like Jojo. He's a very good filmmaker, but he definitely has a weird sense of humor. And I think it's perfect for a show like Time Bandits. I think it could be super fun. The thing with them not bringing in little people is it's very strange. And I think in the end, they're probably going to have to bring in little people, but I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I mean, It's definitely a show that's we'll probably have to check out and do a weekly thing on, maybe for the podcast. But right now, I think they need to address this and straighten things out, because it seems very strange.
Brian, Taika is kind of lumped in with like that Hollywood crowd that, does like the whole woke type thing, especially surrounding, Thor Love and Thunder with like Femme Thor and stuff like that. And do you think that this is another situation of like, wokeism coming back to bite the hand that feeds it, where basically, they decide, hey, even though we have a multiracial, culturally diverse cast here, it's not diverse enough because we're not including little people in it?
I mean, possibly. I actually thought Natalie Portman was really hot as Thor, but maybe that's because I'm secretly bi and I just don't want anyone to know. I think Taika Waititi is actually better than most at making wokeism entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, yeah.
Like, he's able to take something that is obviously checking all the boxes and has like this very woke, a story. He's able to make it something that, like, I don't really care how much it's checking the boxes, because it sort of works. So he has this ability to do that. If anyone can deal with it, I think it's Taika Waititi. And I don't. At what point does it end? Like, do we start like including like very specific heights and weights as part of the, inclusivity?
Well, in the article, they define what it is to be a person of small stature, aka a dwarf.
I think I'm gonna go audition, because I am the world's largest dwarf.
You are.
I am. Yes.
I still don't understand what's wrong with the word midget and compared to dwarf. Dwarf sounds worse, if you ask me. I'd rather be called fun-sized or a midget if I was.
Absolutely fun-sized. I like fun-sized because they're more fun.
Yes.
Tom, what's your take? What's your take on this little controversy or non-controversy? Because I haven't seen many people getting too upset about it.
Well, we did talk about a little bit the other day when it was brought to our attention that this is going forward over at Apple. I hadn't even known that he'd been fostering this idea. I guess he'd been working on it or pushing it since 2019. Up front on paper, like Andre said, Taika Waititi makes sense. Terry Gilliam's sense of humor and sense of filmmaking really does lend itself to Taika's strengths.
Yeah, I think so.
But like Andre and most people, I was not impressed by Thor 4, and I'm not surprised they're not bringing him back for a 5th film. And at this point, I haven't heard shit about Flash Gordon, which was supposed to be one of his next big projects. So I guess he's working on this right now. And yeah, as far as the rest goes, I think you guys are right. Peter Dinklage screwed this up for all little people. I think that Andre is correct about the Hollywood being too hypersensitive now because of that.
Tom, do you want to
And-
fill us in on what Peter Dinklage did?
Oh yeah, for those who may not remember, when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was announced, Peter Dinklage made some stink about little people being used in films for all these kind of characters all the times, and some really dumb argument. So because of that, Disney had retaliated. Oh, we were just planning on using CGI to do funny characters. Let's be real. You know what they were going to do. Disney is probably more accurate in saying that they were going to just use CGI to recreate the dwarves as they appear in the original film, just in a live action version, kind of like they did Pinocchio. I'd imagine is what they were going to do, regardless. But Dinklage making a stinklage about this caused a bunch of people to get upset that are actual actors, because let's be real, I've actually, for a short time, and I'm not being punny, dated a little person, and she said how difficult it is to get work as a little person in just normal everyday jobs. So the entertainment industry is one of the few avenues they do have, and she, like many of her friends that were like that and family, that they did work in the entertainment industry, whether it's, localized or it's in the big leagues or whatever. But when it comes to these kind of things, these are like 1 in a million shot that some of these actors get to get in a big motion picture like this.
Christmas is coming, so it's probably the busy time of year for.
Well, not to be funny, but yeah, that's the sad part, Matt. You're not wrong. Is like there aren't a lot of jobs, and that's why a lot of little people are on disability for that very reason.
Yeah.
And to be real about it, and so a lot of actors were raising a stink about it with Dinklage, and I know some were claiming they supposedly had auditions for Disney for the Seven Dwarfs movie. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but because of that big stink now, I believe Hollywood has become very sensitive to the idea of casting little people in any way that may make them look like they're being made fun of. And look at Willow, for instance. It took 3 trailers for them to finally advertise that there is a little person in this movie besides Willow.
Yeah.
And only one of the new cast members is actually a little person. So that's kind of sad.
We got to get moving on from this. So we're going from little people to little minds. And one of the funny things is that now that the Rings of Power is out and the Amazon hype train has reached its final destination, critics are actually being honest about how bad the Rings of Power was. And it's kind of interesting. We got 2 articles here I want to highlight. The first is from Forbes that says Rings of Power Season 1, Amazon's arrogant betrayal of the Lord of the Rings. And then we also have this from The Guardian that says, now that it's over, let's come out and say it. The Rings of Power was a stinker. And it's an interesting take. The Forbes article in particular is especially harsh, going after the making of the show. And they all make extremely valid points about how bad of a TV show it was just in general, and also how terrible of an adaptation this thing was. Matt Vader 74, you have a lot to say about the Forbes article, so let's go to you first.
As a non-book reader, as a person who's not up on his lore outside the movies, I hadn't realized exactly how far off of the wagon this show actually was from the lore. It's pretty wild, and that's one thing that this Forbes article is really good at diving into. The whole back half of this thing, and if you haven't read this, guys, go read it. It's an amazing article.
Link in the description.
He destroys this series. There's one paragraph in here that I just want to highlight really quick. It says, in the first season of the Rings of Power, we are shown no realms of men other than Numenor, which is not one of the 9, nor are we shown the other 6 dwarven lords beyond Durin. We spend a total of about 15 minutes on the forging of the rings, which is done out of order and almost as an afterthought. And, that one paragraph alone just shreds this thing, and he goes further into it in detail about how off this thing is. They just, it's like they handed some script writers with no cred some crayons and said, here, go have some fun with your whiteboard. And that's what this show kind of turned out as, right? I mean, it's trash, it's garbage. And I think any actual Tolkien fan out there that's more so than I am should be just beside themselves and insulted at what they tried to pull over on everybody here.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about this is he not only goes into why it failed as an adaptation of Tolkien's work, but why it fails as an actual TV series outside of the Tolkien aspects of it. And Brian, I know you guys, you and Shane reviewed this article on one of your Lord of the Rings of Power streams, and I know that Shane started off very positive about this show.
Oh yeah.
By the end, he was with the rest of us, where it's like, this is complete hot garbage. And now that the series is over, we're starting to see the critics actually like kind of like put aside their shilliness and be like, yeah, we admit it wasn't very good. What's your take on this?
Yeah, it's funny because, like I said, I'm gonna make at some point when I find the time, I'm gonna make a supercut of Shane grinning when the series started and looking very angry by the time it ended, and it's just slow transition of him just being blackpilled by the show. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with Rings of Power, but I do know that they have what is it? How many seasons? 5 seasons, right?
5 seasons, yeah.
Oh geez, 5 seasons.
Maybe we'll get to the One Ring by the end of the season finale of episode 5, right?
I mean, but can they? Can they do that? Like, does it? I mean, I guess they could do whatever they want because they've been doing whatever they want. But technically, like the way the ages work and all that, I don't know if they actually can. They started in this sort of dead area, and I guess the purpose was to sort of write their own canon, but then they also borrowed from canon that shouldn't be. I just don't know how this all works out because I don't think the show can be saved. I think it's dead in the water, and I think that they're probably going to lean into their changes because they know that most normies don't care now.
Well, they do now because this Forbes article is very apparent about pointing it all out to us. That's what I liked about this article is it took the facts that I didn't know about. Mm-hmm. I didn't read the Silmarillion. I don't know about all this stuff that happened thousands of years before the movie's crap. I never really cared, but it's interesting to me seeing what they did with this stuff that people do know about, and they didn't do anything with it. They just made up their own shit, and it's wild. It's just wild to me what they did here. So.
Yeah. So Tom, we've learned that Payne and McKay, the two guys who were the showrunners of this, they'd never done anything of note before. They came from the Bad Robot incubator. They got J.J. Abrams to call Amazon and get them the job. They kept saying that they were going back to the book for these things, but it's obvious that they strayed from the book from the beginning. And as now that we have like one season in the can, we can see like all the sins of like the mystery boxes, the big reveals that weren't actually reveals because everyone guessed the plot twists in episode 1. And now they're coming out saying that that season 2 is going to focus on humanizing Sauron by showing him to be like a Walter White character, breaking bad. And showing his transition to being a Dark Lord as opposed to the guy who just wanted to get away in season 1. What's your take on this? Do you think that that people are going to be more honest about the show going forward now that season 1 is out and Amazon can't hide how bad it is?
Well, to be clear up front and about it, I have only seen 20 minutes of the first episode. I shut it off after that and have never gone back since. So it's just full disclosure there, just so you know. But on that note, like, yeah, we did see some critics hedge their reviews, and some were brutally honest up front. Like Entertainment Weekly comes to mind. I think one of the critics over at Forbes was pretty straightforward with how they felt early on. But other than that, yeah, there was a lot of puffy reviews that went out, including one from The Guardian from a completely different critic to the one that just recently come out where they said we need to just call it what it is, and that is a stinker. But yeah, I think you're starting to see a little bit more honesty from some of the critics, because I think a lot of them know that no matter what Amazon's giving them in access or whatever goodies beyond that, because let's not pretend that that's not part of this. At that point, they know that their reputation's on the line, and they can only give some of these movies so good reviews for so long. And we've started to see that over the last year. Between Doctor Strange and Thor, they were a little bit harsher on those, for instance, and then the same thing with Top Gun, where at first it seemed like the critics were kind of coming after it and trying to paint it as a conservative right-wing film.
Right.
And then as soon as they saw what it was, or at least what was going to be, let's say, that they backed off on that quite a bit. We actually did a video on that. And it's just one of those things where at this point, I feel like, yeah, like we said with J.J. Abrams earlier, McKay and Payne, they did a phone call. They had Uncle JJ get him this job in the first place. But if you've noticed, since that has happened to now, there's been a little bit of a shift in Hollywood, and a lot of his acolytes are being uprooted. And from what we've been hearing rumors of, there's going to be some retooling for season 2, and they'll still be around, of course, but that's what we'll suddenly hear about, some new people to come in and help give them a fresh perspective, let's say.
Aren't
You
they
know what I
filming
mean?
season 2 right now?
They're in pre-production, I believe. But that's the thing, is this season 2 is like another 2 years off. And you're right, like they're committed to 50 hours of this crap. I know they have to specifically release it in certain ways because of the loopholes that they made for this, but then again, I've heard there's been some talks with Embracer Group, which now owns the rights to the regular Lord of the Rings stuff, and some hefty paychecks were paid to Warner Brothers, I heard as well. So who knows what's going to happen with season 2? They could start introducing some things that really mess with the canon. But to keep it to wrap it up from there, basically all I see going forward is that a retooling. Payne and McKay will be reduced as far as their size in the control they have over the show, because let's be real, they showed their hand in their interviews when they said, we've been writing for 10 years and we've been part of projects where they had the right director, the right title, the right cast, the right story, but it still never got made. Well, clearly that last thing may not have been true, because you're
Right.
the only common denominator here.
Right.
If those other parts are true, then you're the problem.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Not them. And the fact that it took J.J. Abrams to get you this job in the first place says everything we need to know. And yeah, I mean, even though Amazon likes to say, oh, well, we love their passion and blah, 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 bullshit. You got a call from J.J. Abrams and you didn't want to piss him off, or you wanted to get in his good graces and whatnot. So, and Matt will tell you anything about the kissing ass that goes on in Hollywood. So,
Yeah, it's been kind of funny to me to see, like, especially in the industry trades, like Hollywood Reporter and stuff like that, the level of shilling that they've done for these two guys. Like, they were on like the cover of Hollywood Reporter with like the headline, the Ring Masters or something like
then
that.
I think that's where that story
or
that I just reiterated came from. Yeah.
Yeah, the Ring Leaders is what it was. And it's a picture of the two of them, and like they're looking all like dapper and stuff like that. And Amazon's really trying to push them as like like they know what they're doing. But anyone who watches this show, especially Tolkien fans, knows that this was like an affront to people's sensibilities. It was just a bad show. And to give two inexperienced showrunners $1 billion franchise,
Ostensibly
off
the
the bat.
biggest show of all time. Let's be real.
Yeah. And I'm sure, especially now that we can compare it to House of the Dragon, I'm sure Amazon is kind of panicking. So Farnsworth, what they have to do with Abrams is basically they were part of the Bad Robot kind of like school of TV and movie making.
Most recently, they worked on one of the Star Trek 4 drafts.
Well, they were basically the apprentices to Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci. And when Roberto Orci was first set to direct and write Star Trek 3, he brought these two guys on to write the script for it. And it was so bad that Paramount fired Orci and scrapped their script and went with Simon Pegg.
Oh,
So,
jeez.
yeah, so like these guys basically they've been kind of like brought up through the Bad Robot Hollywood machine, and they've tried to get a lot of stuff off the ground. None of their stuff has ever been good enough to actually happen until this point. And I always wondered why they decided to go with these guys. And now we know that J.J. Abrams basically intervened and said like, hey, hire these guys. So it's a weird situation.
I think the
in
question
terms of
initially was, what do they have on Abrams?
what do they have on
What they
Abrams?
blackmail him with? But yeah, it's
Okay.
good. I like your
Well-
explanation. That's because that's important. The relationships where they come from is
Hollywood's a relationship
interesting.
town.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, you know, when we want Tom on the stream, I just text him and be like, "Hey Tom,
Yeah.
can you come on our stream?" It's the same thing in Hollywood. It's like, "Hey, you want to be in my movie?"
You want to be in my movie?
Yeah, I'm sure that's I'm sure The Rock has Henry Cavill on his cell phone. It's like, "Hey, you want to come back as Superman?"
Well, considering they have the same agent, yeah.
And Kevin Hart.
Oh, I mean, like, they have the same, yeah, but their management company, which is owned by The Rock, also manages Henry. Henry, you want to come? You want to be in my movie, Henry? I'll take my shirt off for you, Henry.
All right, so we're going to get to the story everyone is here for, which is basically as soon as Latino Slant's comment is
Hey,
off.
Paulie.
Yeah, hey, Paulie. Amouranth, the drama.
Oh God.
We're going to talk about this.
This is something you're
All
going to have
right.
to bring me up to speed with. I know very little about this.
Yes. Okay, so guys, so
She's a
for those of you,
whore.
What?
so for those,
Well, that I knew.
Wow.
I mean,
all right, real quick. So for those of you who don't know who Amouranth is, she started off as a cosplayer on Twitch, and she eventually became one of like the biggest Twitch stars out there by doing sexual stuff that basically was still within Twitch's guidelines. So she does a lot of ASMR, which is like sexy whispering into a stereo like microphone. She did a lot of hot tub streaming, which was basically a way to wear revealing outfits and getting around Twitch's terms of service, because they said you could wear swimwear if it was appropriate, and so people went into hot tubs to say like, oh well, I'm wearing my bathing suit in my hot tub and it's appropriate, and so Twitch can't ban me. And she's been at the forefront of what's called the thought movement, THOT, which stands for that hoe over there, and it's basically a term used for women streamers who like don't really have any skills other than being attractive and getting men to give them money for just paying attention to them. And she's like one of the highest paid Twitch streamers on the platform. Across all of her social media and YouTube and Twitch, she makes about $1.5 million a month. And on her OnlyFans, it's reported that she makes at least $2 million a month just off of her OnlyFans.
Oh, I'm so jealous, dude.
I know, right?
So
I wish I was a hot chick.
I know. Me too.
She's pulling in about $3.5 million a month by just being attractive. And what came out recently is that she did a live stream where she was in a lot of distress. She was crying, and she revealed that all this time that she's been doing this stuff, she's been married. And it's been kind of like an open secret. Like anyone who paid attention knew that like she had a husband, but he apparently is a very controlling and abusive person, allegedly, where he made her hide the fact that they were married, because if people thought she was married, they wouldn't give her as much money in terms of tips and bits and stuff like that. And basically he's been the one who's been kind of like the mastermind behind her business model, where he was the one who said, oh, we need to do hot tub streaming because
so he's
like
been her
this is gonna
business
be a big
manager,
meta.
basically.
Pretty much. But she revealed that like he would make her do like 15-hour long streams, and he was the one telling her like all this stuff, and he was managing her finances, and he would basically like threaten and bully her into doing what he wanted her to do. And stuff like, oh, you can't tell people that we're married, it'll hurt the business model. And recently on this live stream where she's spilling all this tea, she said that he was threatening to kill her dogs if she didn't do what he told her to do. And she was showing text messages between her and her husband. And then at one point she got him on the phone. And if you guys ever heard the Amber Heard Johnny Depp phone calls during like the trial, it sounded just like that, except it was a dude doing it to a girl instead of like Amber Heard doing it to Johnny Depp. It was just as
So
like,
she did actually back up her claims.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And-
Okay. So I just want to be clear where we're set.
But there's more. There's more.
Yeah.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Oh, well, tell him, Johnny.
So after that stream, that stream ended with I think it was either a friend or her mother or someone like that called her up and was trying to get to the bottom of what was happening. And she asked if she was off her meds. And at that point, the stream ended. and nobody heard from Amouranth. And so like recently people reached out to her and her representation, and they said that they're doing fine. There are legal proceedings in the works. She's gotten control of her account because her husband was threatening to basically take all the money and leave her broke, or at least like with like $1 million or something like that. And he had access to all of her social media, and he was like, I'm going to delete all your social media. I'm going to delete your YouTube channel. I'm going to delete everything that, you know, your business relies on if you, you know, do this stuff. So apparently they've been in negotiations, and things are moving towards some type of like resolution. But it's obvious that, you know, she's been in some type of abusive relationship for quite some time. But they appear to be separating now, or at least taking a break from one another, and the courts are involved. And now that this is all out there, people are coming to Amouranth's side. There has been some controversy as to whether or not this is actually just a publicity stunt or if this is real. But this drama encompassed the entire streaming community for like the past week, ever since Amouranth did that live stream. So I wanted to hear your guys' take on it. Matt Bader, what do you think of the Amouranth drama?
So I woke up, and I, you know, like I always do, I check my Twitter and stuff, and I wake up in the morning. It kind of gets me going. And I immediately saw all this stuff, and I just kind of made a random post that said, "Hey man, don't abuse people. I mean, nobody deserves to be abused, even Amouranth, and you know, and that for both men and women. If you're in an abusive relationship, you need to do what you can to get out of it." So I was kind of on her side there at the start, and I'm still not on her side. I just don't know all the ins and outs of it, but nobody deserves to be in an abusive relationship. I want to get that out there right now. And if you are, get help. You know what I mean? Because it's not cool. And in my real life world, I see stuff like that all the time where there's just bad situations. Had one last night, but I'm not going to get into that. But this thing, I'm more interested in what her fandom thinks and what they would do if this came out and was proven to be a hoax. How you know, because I read this thing yesterday about how they think this person's apparently an insider or whatever, and you guys know what I'm talking about because I sent it to you. They think that this was all cooked up. This was all a big scam because, you know, a lot of these big streamers, they're seeing their revenue go down over time here, and they needed and they needed something to boost it back up because they want to change the direction of their streams. You know, they want to get out of the hot tubs and start doing something else. And you know, if this was cooked up, if this person that is allegedly her husband is, you know, one of her production assistants or mods that she talked into doing this, then what does her fandom do? Do they keep supporting her? Do they care that they're tricked? Does the dishonesty of these people, do they care? You know what I'm saying? It's just a weird situation for me because I don't believe people should be in abusive relationships, but at the same time, I also don't believe people should be taken advantage of. These people make a ton of money,
Right.
and it's just something seems off. Something seems off here, and that's just. I think I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
So Brian, you know, Amouranth has come under a lot of criticism in her career for basically manipulating desperate men into giving her money. You know, she is basically the queen of thoughts to a lot of people. Lots of videos are made about her, and she's kind of like the face of like an entire movement of where basically as long as you look pretty and you do sexual stuff without being overly sexual, you can make millions of dollars without being good at video games or, you know, anything like that. The ASMR stuff is another big thing because it's just like it's so blatantly sexual.
Right.
Like, do you think that this is actually real?
I totally use it just to fall asleep, Matt.
Yeah, totally.
I just use it to fall asleep. Okay. You know what?
Sorry.
It's what's interesting is the actual. I don't know if the 4chan post is real, the N and whatever.
Right.
But we've seen a lot of these Twitch streamers pull very similar real world stunts to switch up their content before. So this is not out of the realm whatsoever. And I don't think it's out of the realm for I don't even know how to pronounce her name. Amouranth.
Amouranth.
Yeah. I don't know if it's out of the realm for her. And we've seen her and what's his name? Asmongold.
Asmongold. Yeah.
Stupid names. They've both been really shady. And they've also I've seen other posts, like Twitch clips, where they clip the stream, where they're complaining about donations. So it actually sort of checks out. And could the person who posted that can be completely legit, or he could just be drawing the same conclusions that the rest of us are.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, until her quote unquote husband actually surfaces to some degree, we're really not going to know. And it is a crappy thing to fake. It really is. But I wouldn't put it past them, though. Like these people are really just all about getting as much money as possible, and it's not about actually creating content or being moral or changing the world for the better. It's not.
I don't have a problem with people making money. If you want to make money, more power to you. I like to make money. Great, make money, but don't be a dishonest. Bad. I don't know. I don't even think of a word, but don't be dishonest about it. Don't gaslight people. Don't, just be cool. Be cool, man.
Well, I'll say this about Amouranth. Like, she's a very hard worker. I've seen her like she really does try a bunch of different things and see what sticks. I've watched her podcast a couple of times where she has like other thoughts on with her, and like they're all hot and they all just talk about all the boys who want to bang them. And it's such it's a horrible podcast because it's just boring. Like there's really nothing there except listening to girls talk about how hot they are. But she really does, like, she does those long streams. She's not a video gamer. She's a cosplayer. And she's always looking for stuff to do in order to get attention. And so I respect her hustle, but at the same time, like she's basically all that's wrong with Twitch right now. And so I have mixed feelings about this, but I want to hear what Tom thinks about this issue.
Well,
Tom, do you think that this was maybe a PR stunt?
I mean, I'm hearing a lot of this fresh, and I don't have a lot of information clearly. But as far as like, has she made any accusations about physical abuse at all?
No.
And
She did show a picture of like her door where apparently her husband broke the doorknob off so she couldn't lock him out. But I don't think she's made any accusations of physical abuse. It's mostly just like he's super controlling.
Psychological abuse, which again, I'm not trying to pretend isn't a thing or anything.
Well, she said that he threatened to kill her dogs, and she's a big animal person.
Yeah.
So
okay. Well, here's the thing: if that's the case, you call the cops and you show them or you tell them, or you show them the text or whatever. That's the thing. Is she did.
I did. Yes.
Yeah.
I joined her channel for research.
Sure, totally. Again, as far as like, I'm not going to sit here and say that mental abuse is not a thing. It clearly is, especially as somebody who's a father of
and emotional abuse. Yeah.
And emotional abuse is also a thing. From somebody who's a father of a son who has autism, I worry about, him being manipulated or abused in that way all the time, by people who are trying to take advantage of him. So I'm not going to say that that's not a possibility, but if she's of sound mind and not somebody who has some kind of emotional issues, most people have the wherewithal to stand up against somebody who's trying to manipulate them. So I can't help but feel like she has some kind of part to play in that, like for her to have allowed it to go on, because it's not like she's not benefiting from this either. She clearly did it for how many years and what have you. Again, I'm not trying to dive into their personal life. To me, this sounds more like a personal problem between them than it sounds like than anything worse. And it sounds like it's playing out in public. Now, all I know is that you've told me that she played or she showed some text on screen and she did talk to him on the phone. But again, she was clearly aware though that they were being recorded and he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
but you said it was more of a reversal. Yeah.
Well, she went live.
Okay.
And when she was talking to him on the phone,
mm-hmm.
this was basically her trying to get the word out there in a way that he couldn't interrupt about what was going on.
And that's fair. I get that. I get that. Either way, it's about the same kind of thing. So I'm not gonna condone or condemn for either on that. But as far as the guy goes, he's not the one with the tits, so he's got to learn his place. He can be her business manager all day long, but he's got to remember the tits pay the bills, and that's the bottom line.
Tits pay the bills.
That's right. The tits pay the bills, and in that case, she gets the right to be a little bit of a diva, and maybe that's part of it too. I've had to wrangle cats before. I've been accused of a lot of shit, but I'll tell you one thing, you know, sometimes when it comes to money and egos being involved, people will make up and say some pretty outlandish shit. Now again, I'm not saying that she is making any of this up. If she's not, then she clearly needs to just get out of the situation. She don't owe him a goddamn thing. What? Nope. Really? I mean, sure, he may have helped her get to this point, but if he wanted to be in the background and do whatever, that's his problem. And if he didn't keep her happy, then guess what, buddy? You're replaceable. The tits ain't.
Well, what's funny about this is that she might even get more simps signing up because now she's actually single.
That's the other thing, and I get what you're saying. And on that part, that's where me personally, I see like a lot of do I believe this whole kind of situation, or are they both playing this up, or is she playing this up for some kind of sympathy clicks and sympathy whatever? Because I'll tell you right now, I know there's a lot of men out there that are lonely, and it's very easy to manipulate a guy into thinking you like him a little bit, and he will do anything for a good looking girl.
In the end, you know, it got the world talking about Amouranth for a week, right? On the social medias. And here we are today.
That's what I'm saying. So like, so, yeah, I can't deny that. Exactly. I can't deny that.
White Knights are going to be sending donations when she comes back.
That goes back to the Frost thing we started the show with, right? I'm sure there was some people in the immediate vicinity who were totally all for that and supported her doing that because they knew exactly what was going to happen as far as like generating some interest in G4, which they needed. They thought they were going to get patted on the back for it. I guarantee you. They were going to be, you know, you guys were the ones who brought G4 back and brought it back to its former glory. No, instead you fucked it up. You got it the attention it wanted, but you know, so what is this going to gain her in the end if it's true or not? I don't know. If he's really being that abusive, then get rid of him. If you're not married, even more so. He's got, what has he got on you? Right? Like, I guess that's the thing. She sounds like she's lawyered up. So
apparently he had control over her bank accounts. He had control over her social media accounts.
Whose fault is that?
Well, it's not a fault thing. It's basically he was threatening her if she didn't fall in line.
Well, that sounds like an
and it's not always easy to get out of.
No. Well, that sounds like an absolution or whatever the word is I'm looking for of a business, basically.
I think her doing the live stream was the way she checkmated him because she was able to expose his behavior. She was able to communicate to a broad audience what was happening. And so now, like, unless he works with her and, you know, actually like gives up some of that control, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. So like, I think that was actually a smart move on her part.
It just feels to me like it all seems very contrived. The look on her face when she's doing it, you know, her crying seems fake. And then that she came out the next day or 2 days later saying everything's okay, he's gonna work through it and get help, I have control over my pets and my money again. It was, you know,
that means their lawyers talk.
Guys don't just flip a switch and become good again. The people like this,
even good guys that are mad don't just flip a switch.
I mean, it just seems very suspicious, and I'm leaning towards that this is a diabolical publicity stunt right now. I could change my mind again, and I was completely on the other side of the line when this first happened because I don't like to see women get abused, but it just the more this plays out, it just seems more suspicious to me, and it's diabolical, and I'm just curious how it ends
Well,
now.
she has come out and said that she's going to be taking a little bit of a break, but
Mm-hmm.
she plans on coming back under her own terms.
Yeah.
And when she comes back, you just know it's going to be another big publicity thing. People are going to be like watching her return stream, even though like I've tried watching some of her streams. They're very boring.
Yeah.
I don't know what people see in them, but she's a very attractive girl.
Fat material. That's it.
It's like watching. Well, no, never mind. So,
but I mean, like, you know, there are attractive girls out there who are naked on the internet that you could actually fap to if you wanted to.
It's a guilt thing, Matt, and I'm sure that's what a part of it is. I have no idea because I can't get in that mindset, but like I gotta imagine that a guy who is that boy, it's like that girl. It's like you have people out there that they will like basically pay women to pretend that they're their girlfriends online in so many ways. It's one of those things that I'm sure it makes no sense to guys like us, but I could see a guy who would rather, it feels more real to them to have somebody who's not just clearly like, oh, what do you want me to do? Oh, you want me to put it there? Okay. You know, like, I mean, I'm not saying that's how they do it, but it makes it more like the girlfriend experience than it
sounds
just
like
being
you know
about
what you're
sex.
talking about there, Tom.
No, well, I can just say that. I mean, you know, I hang out with Mexican Iron Man. No, I'm just kidding.
we need to get him back on the show.
But no, I mean, I can
that was a
understand
perfect
that.
answer. Well
Seeing
done.
from, you know, just from that point of view of like, you know, you want something that's more than just a sexual experience. You want, you know, that connection with, and it makes them feel that connection. And us, we see this, you know, we see that like, oh, they're fucking seals as soon as she says, you're not giving me enough fucking super chats. To some, to some men, that's a sexual thing, right? Like they love that control of a woman. They love being the henpecked husband. For every time we see a guy who we think is being mentally abused by his wife, he might just be getting off on that. We don't know. That's why a lot of times men just see that and they just look the other way because that's his thing, you know. We're not going to question it, but
I'm a little into it. Not gonna lie.
There you go. See, Brian's a little into it. But no, I'm with Matt on this. I'm kind of leaning more towards a bit of a publicity stunt because she could have handled this shit behind the scenes with a lawyer just fine. Mm-hmm. And most people normally wouldn't want this kind of thing out there. But the only reason you're also right, Matt, that as far as like if she felt like that was her only means of defense, fine. But it sounds like to me she had probably more than enough evidence, and money is a situation where you can trace where it comes from. So she's going to have to pay him off either way. And now I feel like she's going to have to pay him off even more now.
Well, she makes $3.5 million a month. So, you know, pay him off and get out.
That's what I'm saying. If she would have just had to get all the info out of him through a lawyer, she might have had to give him what, 15-20% of whatever it was they were making.
Well,
half, you know.
Yeah, now it's gonna be half. That's what I'm saying. Like before that, he would have had to go a lot out of his way to prove that he did all this shit for her. Now she's put that out there. I see where you're coming from, Matt, but I see it from the other perspective of she just confirmed everything when he goes into court and says, I basically made this bitch. I did all this stuff for her. I did all the work. I did all the fucking footwork. All she did was sit on a goddamn stream all day. And then he's going to be able to argue for over half. Before this, he had to prove that. If she did this quietly with lawyers, it would be all on him to prove that all the shit that she's saying isn't true, because then he has to prove that he actually did the fucking work. She basically admitted that for him on screen. That's where I'm coming from. That's all I'm saying. So at this point, I don't feel bad for either one of them, to be honest with you. As long as nobody's getting hurt and there ain't no kids, I don't give a shit.
I just want to reiterate.
Fur babies are one thing, but
I just want to reiterate one more time before we get out of here, because I think we're getting out of here real soon. If you are in an abusive relationship, if you get out, get help, do what you have to do.
Yeah,
it's not a way to live. Fix it, and you know, there's a lot of outreach places out there that can help. You know, I'm not trying to be an advocate here, but do what you got to do.
Yeah, and I'm not victim blaming either, so
no,
I don't think that either. So, I'm just saying, like, this guy is nothing in the equation, right?
Well, also, Amouranth has proven to be quite manipulative in the past in terms of like how she deals with fans and simps and stuff like that. So, you know, it's hard to know what's real in this situation. But if there is a victimizer situation going on here, we are definitely on the side of the victim. Real quick, we got a super chat from E. Clay Tomlinson for $1.50.
Thank you.
Or I should say super sticker. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. appreciate all the support. And with that, guys, we're going to be wrapping up today's stream. Thank you so much for coming out. I know that, you guys are probably used to us just ragging on like a particular TV show, but we wanted to get back to more of a variety of topics. It requires less investment from our guests to come on and talk about a trending topic as opposed to sitting down and having to watch a terrible TV show. And we want to thank Tom Connors for taking time out of his day to slum it with us this Saturday morning.
Oh, you call it that, but luckily, unless Andre sends me work on Saturday mornings, is one of my more freer times every other week.
Yeah,
so
or he's hanging out on
nice to hang out.
Amouranth's stream,
Yeah, Amouranth. Amouranth.
whatever her name is.
So Tom, any final thoughts, and where can people find more about you?
Final thoughts or thoughts?
Yeah.
But I'm changed.
THOTs, yeah.
You can find me, of course, on Midnight's Edge and Midnight's Edge After Dark. Don't forget to check out the boys over on Espanol, as Paulie's in the chat there. He'll let you know. Also, we have Midnight's Edge Live Archive, where Andre likes to take clips from the live show. And if you want to just get a certain section or story or thoughts on something, there you go, instead of having to watch the whole stream. But no, we always have various videos and stuff in the works. So always check in to our latest droppings, as they say.
Yes.
Other than that, no, I just do my thing, and you know where to find me on the Twitters and the YouTubes.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, Tom. Brian, where can people find out more about you? And do you have any final thoughts?
You know what? Surprisingly, no, not today. Normally I would just use this time to rant for like 15 minutes and bother everyone.
Well,
No.
you dropped a Black Adam spoiler review with you and Shane late last night.
I did
so-
an hour and a half long review. I
which
really
I
wanted
didn't get
you
an
on that
invite
stream.
for,
Matt.
so thank you for that.
No, you had an open invite.
well,
but I
you
didn't
didn't
wanna-
send me any or anything.
Well, I didn't want to bother. I didn't want to bother you if you were doing your movie night thing too, though. So I figured
Well,
you
I
would
was-
reach
I
out
was
to me when
expecting-
you had a
I was
chance.
expecting to hear from you, and I didn't hear from you.
Oh, I'm so sorry, man. I thought it was more like I thought you were gonna let me know when you were ready. So that's my bad.
Well, I kept telling you, what time are you going to do it? And you say, I'll tell you tomorrow. And I
said
never heard from you.
10, same time, 10.
No, you said, I don't know when Shane is going to be available, but I'll let you know.
That's my bad. But yeah, it was a great review. We had fun, and it's a long review, so hopefully you guys can enjoy that. And what else? Yeah, all the different places. Go to the podcast on YouTube. Scroll down to the bottom, you'll see our network. The only good additional YouTube channels there are probably not good, but I mean, doing something. I would say the Podcast Live, Unleashed, and DC Unleashed. The other, Star Wars and Marvel, there's nothing going on. We're not very passionate about it. We created the channels, but we're not really updating them very much right now. But go check it out.
All right. And Matt Vader 74, where can people find out more about you? Any final thoughts? And what do we have planned for the live stream going forward?
Well, you can find me at Matt Vader 74 on most of the socials, Twitter mostly. I want to take just a really quick moment to say thank you to all of the Salty Nerd Podcast YouTube channel fans and supporters for getting us over 7,000 subs a couple days ago. That was really fun. And, we're just grinding away and growing that thing. 10,000 is coming soon, I hope. And so thanks again for that milestone, guys. It's very fun watching this thing grow, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. This week we got coming up Vincenzo Natali. Is that right?
Yep. Vincenzo Natali week.
Vincenzo Natali week director. We got we're going to be looking at his movies, The Cube, I believe, and
Just
Cube and Splice.
Yep.
And we have an interview coming up with Vincenzo and David Hewlett and who else?
Andre Bajelic,
who were all involved in a big way with Cube, and that was a fun interview. And we have a review coming up of Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities show, starring David Hewlett.
directed by Vincenzo.
Directed by Vincenzo, coming up. That's all
Episode
coming
2.
out this week. So that'll be a
I'm
lot of fun.
stealing Archmage's idea, by the way, and just so you know, Archmage, totally
Thoughts?
stealing it. Final thoughts as a horror movie. Here's the setup.
Yeah.
You got four thoughts.
THOT.
Yes, they have 15 minutes and 15-minute increments. They have to keep an audience, and the one after 15 minutes with the least amount of people watching, So every 15 minutes, whoever's the least, down to the last girl. There you go.
Right
All
on.
right.
Final thought.
Wait,
It's done. It's a done deal. It's in the movie.
and they're accepting super chats the whole time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please
All right.
send me more money. I don't want to die.
Oh, real quick. Monday morning we got our last Game of
House of the
Thrones,
Dragon.
House of the Dragon review with the Salty Nerd crew. And today, this afternoon, we're doing a watch party on our Discord at saltynerddiscord.com.
Sweet.
Come join us there. So
Nice. We want to give a special shout out to one of our big contributors, Fluffy Panda. Thank you so much for your super chats today.
Yep.
Also, E. Clay Thomason and Setlit Gaming. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much for the support. We really appreciate it. And we've got a big week on the Salty Nerd channel. Thank you all for helping us hit 7,000 subs. Really appreciate that. We're hoping to hit 10,000 soon, but we're going to need your help to do that. So tell people about our channel. We work really hard at it. We put out a lot of content, and we love doing these things for you. And so it's just nice to see our hard work pay off sometimes. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We'll be here same bat time, same bat channel next week for a whole new round of topics to talk about. But until then, stay salty, my friends.
So salty.